This is the Gaumont British News, presenting the truth to the free peoples of the world. First big picture in our newsreels of 1944 was the sinking of the mighty German warship Scharnhorst. Our battleship Duke of York with cruisers and destroyers struck this devastating blow at Germany's shrinking navy. But the sea war continued against the U-boat. Yet here too the Navy was triumphant, aided by the Air Force. The Battle of the Atlantic was all but won in 1944. Coastal Command of the RAF played a spectacular part in the war at sea. And Bomber Command sank the mighty Tirpitz. Great sea battles also took place in the Pacific, but though many victories were granted to the Allies, many battles still lie ahead. The land war against the Japs went well in 1944. American forces backed up by sea and air landed on the Marshall Islands, striding ever closer to Japan itself. And the greatest comeback in the Far East, General MacArthur returned to the Philippines. The British Empire's 14th Army has battled valiantly in Burma. More Japanese have been destroyed in this theater than in any other war zone of the Far East. We suffered a great loss with the death of General Wingate in a plane crash, but his training of our jungle fighters has borne fruit. From Imphal to Tilim, on the Manipur Road and Arakan, the 14th Army have fought an army of devils and worked miracles. 1944 saw staggering new blows by the Red Army against Germany. Soviet troops advanced from Leningrad, from Kiev and the Crimea, to Finland, Warsaw and Budapest. Romania's oil wells at Ploiești were first wrecked from the air and then captured by the Red Army. Romania capitulated and Soviet troops entered Bucharest. This march of 57,000 German prisoners through Moscow is a token of the disasters Hitler's barbarians suffered on the Eastern Front. The war in Italy progressed slowly, but with steady advances under General Alexander. You will remember the heroic days of the Anzio beachhead, the inferno that was Cassino. Then the triumphant capture of Rome. General Alexander's brilliant conduct of this campaign won him well-deserved promotion to the rank of Field Marshal. In Yugoslavia, partisans under Marshal Tito continued to score victories against the German army of occupation. What will liberation mean to this country? June the 6th was D-Day, prepared and backed up by the greatest air assault, the most stupendous military undertaking ever attempted. After the landing, as well as before it, enemy communications were hammered into pulp. The first great harbour was freed in France, Cherbourg. The Germans were counterattacking the British home front, the flying bomb, but the flying bomb was beaten. And a further Allied landing in the south of France. Paris arose. The FFI struck against the Hun oppression after 4 years. On Armistice Day 1944, Mr. Churchill was acclaimed in a Paris that was free at last. Brussels was liberated. And Antwerp. Large parts of Holland greeted the Allied troops as the armies swept on, until the Epic of Arnhem. But Arnhem was held by overwhelming masses of German troops. In Aachen, the Americans captured the first large German city. The islands of the Scheldt estuary were taken after some of the fiercest fighting of the war, and the port of Antwerp could be used to supply the armies of the West. At the end of 1944, the decisive battle of Germany still lies in the future, but we hope and believe that victory will come in 1945.
This is the Gaumont British News, presenting the world to the world.
The year begins on the snowbound Western Front, where the men of the Allied armies faced an enemy still powerful and increasingly desperate. From bases secure from attack, V2s flashed across the winter skies, carrying their loads of death towards London. New Year's Day, when the Luftwaffe swept into the offensive in an all-out bid to smash our airfields in Belgium and Holland. Meanwhile, von Rundstedt's formidable counter-offensive in the Ardennes was rolling forward, led by new and powerful Panzer divisions. Good news from the West, as Montgomery's fighting team halted Rundstedt in mid-career, putting a full stop to his plans for a breakthrough to Antwerp. The way was open for the big push into Germany itself. All this time, our air forces kept up their unceasing attacks. Every day, bigger and better bombs hit the enemy where he felt it most. The bomb-blasted ruins of Cologne had now become a battlefield, with tank fighting tank at the corner of every street. Germany's watch on the Rhine was very nearly at an end. Then the blow long dreaded by Hitler's high command, Montgomery's onslaught across their national river. From airfields all over Britain, the greatest airborne army in the history of war began to fill the skies. 6,000 aircraft of all types took part in this tremendous operation, destined to be one of the death blows of the Third Reich. The 21st Army Group had started crossing the previous day, and joyfully the news went back that the first bridgehead had been formed. A advancing armies in the Ruhr saw the terrible results of Bomber Command's paralyzing night after night attacks. At this time, nothing could keep our Prime Minister from the scene of these vast operations for which he had worked and planned for so long. April the 12th, when a shocked world learned of the death of Franklin Roosevelt. The fateful town of Arnhem, now captured by the British and Canadians under General Crerar. The heroes who fell in the previous autumn were avenged indeed. The German plenipotentiaries at Caserta accept unconditional surrender. In the very heart of Hitler's fortress comes the long-awaited link-up between the soldiers of Britain and America and their comrades of the Red Army. The doom of Germany was at hand. Then on May the 4th, on Lüneburg Heath, Field Marshal Montgomery accepted from General Admiral von Friedeberg the unconditional surrender of more than 1 million German troops. The master race had suffered their greatest defeat, and around the coasts of Britain the U-boats came in to add their surrender to that of their leaders. Luftwaffe Chief Goering and the self-appointed Führer, Dönitz, were taken away to captivity to stand today on trial at Nuremberg, a fate their leader had made sure of escaping. Yes, victory in Europe had ceased to be a dream and now became a joyful reality. The people of Britain rejoiced with their king and queen in the capital which for 6 years had been the rallying point for freedom. Among the ruins of Berlin on May the 10th, the German surrender was ratified by the Wehrmacht Commander-in-Chief Keitel and the representatives of Britain, America, France, and Russia. On the heels of victory came liberation for the oppressed countries of Scandinavia. First, Denmark, which gave a riotous welcome to the hero of the hour, Field Marshal Montgomery. Then Norway, free again after 5 years of terror. And with particular joy, we greeted the liberation of the Channel Islands. Across the world, the Far Eastern War still raged on. Our magnificent 14th Army was near the end of the long road to Mandalay, after fighting in the most appalling conditions men have been called upon to suffer. Tremendous hammer blows had taken the Americans back to the Philippines. Another step on the road to Tokyo, the landings on the Japanese fortress island of Iwo Jima. Still, the Philippines battle raged on, with the Americans fighting their way into the capital, Manila. Triumph in Burma as the 14th Army retakes Mandalay, the crowning glory of one of history's most brilliant campaigns. Okinawa, another bastion of Japanese defense, is burst wide open in a furious combined operation. Again, Burma leaps into the headlines with the occupation of Rangoon by our own forces. To Australia fell the task of the Borneo invasion, when the Japanese were shown what total war could really mean. Still tighter grew the net around Japan, who retaliated with a weapon of fanatic desperation, the suicide plane, which the navies took care of in their own way. Then over the city of Hiroshima, something new and terrible was born. A second blow, this time at Nagasaki. In the crumbling ruins of 2 Japanese cities, the atomic age had dawned upon the earth. August the 15th. A day of rejoicing throughout the entire British Commonwealth of Nations. For the men and women of our land, the last chapter had been written in a story which had taken us from the darkness of defeat to this great day of final victory. An unforgettable year is at an end. May the friendships that have grown and flourished during the years of war help us towards the happiness and prosperity we now wish you all for 1946.